Hello and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk, exploring the issues affecting all of our lives. I'm your host, Austin Harris. As we continue to celebrate Women's Month, which takes place every March in the Cayman Islands, on today's episode, we are thrilled to host an organization who are made up of an influential network of business and professional women spanning some 96 countries, including here at home in the Cayman Islands. The Business and Professional Women's Club of Grand Cayman hosts a number of social events, fundraisers, and community events, and continues to lobby for legislation that seeks to protect the rights of women. With us in studios, it is our pleasure to welcome longtime member Miss Annie Moulton and Miss Cheryl Miles. Ladies, thank you so very much for agreeing to be our guest here on Let's Talk. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
My pleasure entirely. Maybe we can begin with talking about the early establishment of the Crisis Center and why it was deemed necessary for such a center to be established in the Cayman Islands in the first place.
And I'll try and make it as brief as I can. The Business and Professional Women's Club, way back when, we started getting a lot of complaints from women who had been battered, raped, you name it. And there was, at the time, there was not the laws in place to protect those women and girls, and even boys, because it affected, when it affects the mother, it affects the children,
Right.
whether boys or girls. So we as a club, put our heads together, and as one of our mandates in doing things to protect women, we decided what Cayman needed was a crisis center. Of course, in order to get that, we would have to seek government's help, not only in finding a building, but also in passing the laws so that perpetrators could be punished, brought to justice for what they were doing, while women was granted a place to live in safety. But then there was not just to have a place of safety, it was a matter of what would happen to them when they come out of this. Women had to be educated, they had to be counseled, so did the children. And we had nothing like that in place. And I know this might take a little longer, Austin, but it gets to the core of it. So 4 of us ladies from the Business and Professional Women's Club, myself, the late Sister Della Penna, the late Patsy Seymour, the late Estella Scott, decided, we did some research, and place closest to us was the Bahamas. Mm-hmm. And with our own funds, because we had no funding for that at the time, decided to go to the Bahamas to see what they were doing there, to get some idea to come back to Cayman so we could present it to the club, present it to the politicians, and say, we think this will help. We need your help. This is how we're going to have to go about it. So in doing that, we got an agreement, basically, or should we say a nod from government saying, yes, we think it's a good idea. You do what you need to do, come back to us, and we see where we go from there. And it was at that time that the late Edna Moyle had also set up a women's unit, if you remember clearly, in the Glass House, all to do with the protection of women.
Yes.
And all of this. So it all kind of ties in with all what went on before. And at that time, Edna was in the house, so was Miss Heather Bodden. Mm-hmm. And Sister and I approached Heather and Edna and said, look, in order for us to get this crisis center, we need to have a motion brought to the House, and no one better than you girls. And they agreed that they would bring it to the House. And so Miss Heather Borden brought the motion to the House, seconded by the late Honorable Edna Moyle. Honorable Juliana O'Connor spoke to it, and Mrs. Bernard Thompson Murphy, she spoke to it as well. Dr. Frank McPhail, the Honorable Frank McPhail,
Yes.
it was under his ministry that it would have to come under. He was the first man to get up to speak to that motion.
Very good.
And when you see the Hansards, you can see everything that he said in the Hansards, and it was under his ministry, and that we got the crisis center.
All right.
And then he appointed the late Estella Scott as the first director, and her assistant was the late Susan Barnes.
All right. Well, certainly a very colorful and dynamic history, and one that has led to an organization that has
Yes.
continues to do some terrific work. What would you say, and perhaps Ms. Cheryl can answer, are the aims and objectives of the Crisis Center, in summary?
Well, basically, what we aim for, the Crisis Center aims would be to give support to women especially, but to the general public for any, it's a place of safe haven, you know, so we're there, or the Crisis Center is there to give the support for any sort of violence
All right.
that one may come across.
All right. The Crisis Center as an organization hosts a number of social events, fundraisers, as well as community events on an annual basis. That there are a number of events. I'd like us to focus in on three specifically. I think it's the 16 Days campaign against gender abuse, the Silent Witness March, and the Legal Befrienders program. Starting with the 16 Days campaign on gender abuse, tell us a little bit about what that program seeks to teach, to represent, and of course, how does the community benefit from that? Ms. Cheryl?
So the 16 Days of Activism Against Gender Violence, it is an international campaign, and it originated from the First Women's Global Leadership Institute, which was coordinated by women back in 1991. Participants chose the date from November the 25th to December the 10th, and excuse me, it's a day when we come together as and give the support against violence, and it symbolizes the human rights, and you know what women really stand for.
Okay.
So this have been, we partner with other, you know, FRC and other non-governmental organizations to make the day, or the whole entire time from the 25th of November to the 10th a successful and educational program for the community.
All right. The other event, one of which, of course, our audiences may be very familiar with because it culminates into an actual march that usually runs throughout the center of the capital city, Georgetown, and ends at the steps of what is now the Parliament, and that is, of course, the annual Silent Witness March, which seeks to recognize victims of both domestic violence and bullying. Talk to us about the importance of this program.
The mission of the Silent Witness March is to promote peace, healing, and personal responsibility in adult relationships. The first Silent Witness March started with a launch conversation by a group of female artists, writers, and faculty members at a Minnesota Arts College, and it was introduced to the Cayman Islands. The Silent Witness March we usually do the march from the government building straight through past the courthouse and
Station.
the police station, sorry, the courthouse and the Parliament, House of Parliament.
Okay.
And the reason that these areas were used is because they're the lawmakers. You know, start from the government admin building
Yes.
straight through, and it ends up at bringing the laws through
Absolutely.
Parliament.
Indeed.
So we touch each area. We were walking through, touching each area that would be held responsible for
Understand.
allowing those.
Understand.
Yeah.
Okay. The other program, and this program actually has its origins in or tied to the actual formation of the club to begin with, and that is, of course, the Corrine Thompson Scholarship. Miss Annie, maybe you can talk to us about that fantastic program.
Yes, and it's one of my favorite projects. Not that they're all not special, they're all very special and dear to me. But the Corrine Thompson Scholarship Fund is very near and dear to me. The late Mrs. Corrine Thompson, she was one of our founding members of the Business and Professional Women's Club. Ms. Corrine believed very much in women being educated. And she was also aware that one of the things that prevented women from finding their own strengths, so to speak, was maybe a lack of education. Yes. And she thought a project such as providing scholarships for young Caymanian women to better themselves so they could become independent, never ever having a partner as such, but having a partner, not as an abuser, because they were educated, they could look after themselves, they could look after their children. And that is how she thought, let us create a scholarship where we can send these young ladies off to school, tertiary education, and that has gone on since the club was started back in 1976.
Wow. Wow.
Yes, she was one of the founding members, and so was I. So that is how the Corrine Thompson Scholarship Fund came about. Back in those days, Austin, raising funds, we didn't have big banks to give us donations. We were out there doing bake sales and fish fries and whatever. And if we found a friend who had $10, they might say, well, I'll give you $5. You can give me $5 change back. And that's how we did it. And I'm proud to say that today, some of the finest women in our community have gone through our scholarship fund. And we have gone through many. I've lost count now. Yeah. You know, I could name a few, but if I can't name all, I just don't want to name a few.
Has there been an award every year since 1976?
Yes.
So that would be some 47 scholarship recipients.
Just about every year. Sometimes we could do one, maybe two. It depended. And then we decided it was too expensive to send people overseas, and we could better use that money by sending more people locally to the colleges here. So now we are up to giving 3 and 4 scholarships a year.
Wow.
And now we no longer have fish fries and bake sales. Every November we have a ladies' golf scramble, and we raise our money that way. We have raffles, we have prizes. The community has been extremely, extremely supportive of us. We couldn't do it without the community. Everybody has been so gracious to us so that we can send our girls off to get a higher education, and they can become equipped to go out into the world, master good jobs, look after themselves, look after their children, and even family members. And we're very proud of that. And I am very proud of that. coming from humble beginnings and having to work my way up
Yes,
the
ma'am.
ladder without that type of education. I know how hard that is.
Yes,
So we've made it easy for these young ladies. And they are a marvelous group of young ladies.
Certainly sounds like it. And again, I think the gift, if you want to call it as such, that you gave them in that through that scholarship,
Yes.
is certainly priceless to the community.
Yes.
In terms of the benefit we've derived as a result of their participation.
Yeah. And I would like to add one more thing.
Sure.
That the Thompson family really supports the Corrine Thompson Scholarship Fund very graciously every year. Kirk's, the jewelry stores, lawyers, all of the professionals. They send their ladies that work in the offices because, with the Golf Scrabble, there's a team of 4.
Sure.
So we get the full support of the community. And I personally want to thank them for that, because without them, we wouldn't have the funds to do what we're doing.
Indeed. Well, I know I mentioned 3 events, but just moments ago you used the term lawyers, and of course that brought to mind another program that is hugely beneficial to the local community, and that is, of course, your Legal Befrienders program, which
Yes.
provides legal advice and counsel to victims of domestic violence as
Yes.
well as other offenses. Talk to us about this program, and in particular, I think, if you recall, the law firms and attorneys who give of their time pro bono to provide for this fantastic program, the Legal Befrienders program.
Oh, I didn't come with that list.
That's
of
fine. That's
Austin,
fine. That's fine.
But most of the big firms, they send people. It's a Tuesday afternoon,
Okay.
several hours, that we have the legal befriender sessions, and they do it like you said. They do it pro bono, and they help women through things like if where they're in a domestic violence situation, how to go about get maintenance for the kids, for themselves, divorce,
Legal separation.
separation of, there's a word for it, skips me at the moment, senior moment.
No problem. No problem.
And they help them through everything, and it's all free of charge. And we thank those law firms for that. And then there's not just law firms, but you have the one-man show of lawyers that come in
Yes.
and give advice. And that's been going on for years, for many years. And we are very grateful for that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think certainly the audience can relate when you consider domestic violence, the emotional and physical stress that comes with that, but also the legal stresses. And this is one of those programs that seeks to remove
That's
that
right.
pain and anxiety from the victims and give them that necessary helping hand.
Exactly.
Again, hugely valuable to the community, and we have the Business and Professional Women's Club to thank for that.
Yeah.
The Business and Professional Women Club is more than just a support group. It has also been, over its years of operation, an activist group, lobbying for real-world changes and introduction of legislation that have broad impact, starting, I think, with your efforts to promote gender equality.
Yes.
I think in 2011 we had the gender equality law.
Yes.
In 2018 we had the
stalking
law, and then of course in 2021 the protection against domestic violence. The last two, if I can take a bit of credit, I'm grateful because certainly it was during the last progressive-led government administration that those 2 bits of legislation
Yes.
were introduced. But whilst they were introduced in 2018 and 2021 respectively, the work that the Business and Professional Women's Club started on these programs dates back many moons before.
more.
Talk to us a little bit about those 3 bits of legislation.
Well, the gender equality bill, I mean, it is a fantastic bill. And the ladies that run that office, they do a fantastic job. The stalking bill, which came before the sexual and harassment and stalking bill, that is on the books now.
Yes.
And that is a very good bill. And I'm sure anyone listening to me who's ever been stalked know how important it is that there is a bill, such as a stalking bill, that when something happens to them, they can make their complaints to the police,
Yes.
and it can go from there, and they can get some justice and some peace of mind. We had a situation within our own club
Yes.
of one of our members who actually was stalked and things said and comments passed
Yes.
and whatever. So it hit us hard
Sure.
as such. So we know, we can tell you firsthand how demoralizing that can be to a human being,
Indeed.
whether it is a woman or a man, because men get stalked as well.
Yes.
Men also suffer from domestic violence.
Yes.
But, and I know you're a man and you'll probably say, no, this doesn't happen.
No, it's a fact.
But men with their macho ego, they don't want to go to the
Yes.
police.
Yes. Yes.
They
You're
say,
right.
we can handle this. But there's laws on the books encourage them to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And when women see, okay, that men can do it, then why can't I?
Quite right.
Why
Quite
can't
right.
I? Why am I holding back?
Indeed.
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 So,
You're statistically correct. As a matter of fact, statistics will confirm that whilst domestic violence is believed and perceived to be largely affecting women, it does affect men, but men are least likely to report it because of that same machismo that we are otherwise
Yes.
brought up to believe exists.
Yes.
But I think it's also important to point out the significance of the Protection Against Domestic Violence law, which sought to do a number of things, but it sought to define domestic violence as impacting women, men, and children,
That's right.
which is oftentimes the innocent party in all of this that previously were not included in the legislation. And again, I think that is important because it signals the kind of work the Business and Professional Women's Club were doing from very early on. Presently on the table in terms of legislation pending is the sexual harassment bill, which our audience may be familiar with right now. It's presently on the table. It's scheduled to be heard in Parliament at its next meeting, whenever that may take place. And I understand, again, the Sexual Harassment and Stalking Task Force, as it was then called. You were one of the first chairmen, Ms. Annie, on that task force.
Yes.
And we also have to recognize the significant work of Ms. Joanna Small and her team in bringing this sort of lobbying which has led to the sexual harassment bill we see today.
Yes, because without Joanna and her task force, we wouldn't have this bill before the House right now. They worked diligently for many, many hours. And Maples and Calder provided the office space for that task force to work every afternoon that they had to get together.
Wow.
After work. They spent many hours. So we have to give them thanks for that, because we had no office space to provide with them. I attended several of their meetings. I learned a lot from those young people, and they were diligent in what they were doing, and they meant to get this all put together. Now, and I'm sure Joanna sent you something, some background on that. And they were all under the age of 35 years old. And there wasn't just ladies. There was also some very nice young men who were very gung-ho to take part in this for the protection of women.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, they came up with, their ideas. within the law,
Yes.
of course, within the law. And they made recommendations then to government, lobbied government. And again, you know, we can hope and pray that it's not all lost.
Yes.
And we have the word of our premier
Yes.
that this is actually coming to pass. We launched that program or that bill on March 1st, as you may have seen in the paper. And he was very adamant that this is long enough on the shelf. We've dusted it off.
Yes.
We've made the amendments that we need to make, and we are moving ahead with this. And we are all waiting to see this come to pass, because I think Cayman being what Cayman is now,
Yes.
Austin.
Yes.
And I even hate to say that, but it's the truth.
Yes.
It's not what it used to be.
No.
Okay? We need as many laws as we can possibly get for protection of everything. We've got protection for dogs. We've got protection for chickens. Now we need it for man, women, and children.
No, indeed, Miss Anna, and certainly to your point of, you know, Cayman of yesteryear, we're no longer that small, quaint community that looked after each other.
Yeah.
Now we're a small metropolitan city.
That's
More
right.
people that we don't know,
No.
people we've never seen before.
That's
And
it.
with that progress comes positive things as well as many negative things. And
things.
these are the realities we're facing here in the Cayman Islands, as we face around the world. But I certainly think that, like the legislation that came before, starting with the Gender Equality Law in 2011, the sexual harassment bill as it exists today should pass with unanimous support,
Yes.
as the three other bits of legislation
Yes.
did, because I think our legislators firmly understand
Oh,
the
yes.
value and the necessity of this
having-
important legislation.
Yes.
Yes.
I am very confident that our legislators see this for what it is.
Yes.
And they will hate for anybody to look them in the eye, as I would,
Yes.
and say, you never voted for that.
Quite right. Quite
I
right.
think that bill will pass unanimously.
Indeed. Some things are bigger than politics, and these are the
Yes.
real world legislation
Exactly.
that has generations worth of value to a community.
Yes.
Finally, Ms. Annie and Ms. Cheryl, we think about the young women that may be listening to our program here today and inspired by your story, your history, and the ongoing work of the Business and Professional Women's Club. How do young women and young men, how do they become members or are enabled to provide assistance to the Business and Professional Women's Club? How do they contact you?
Well, we have a web page.
Okay.
Everything is on that web page. They can go there. They can print off a membership form and fill that all in, send that to us. We will take that, look at that, and invite them for short interview or whatever.
Yes.
It's $100 per person to join. That's one of the ways we collect our funds. Now, at the moment, under our mandate, we are not allowed to take men on as members.
Yes.
But we have, like with the stalking and harassment bill, we had some wonderful young men that was a part of that.
Right.
And when we have projects like this, that is where they come in. That is where they're helpful. And they have never denied us their help.
Good.
So we hope they will continue. In order for us, because we are an international club,
Yes, ma'am.
to make those changes whereby we could accept men into our club, this would have to be passed during Congress,
Right.
which is every 4 years.
Okay.
So we would have to, just like you do in the House,
Sure.
bring the motion take it to Congress, and they will decide or whether it's a yes or a no.
Right.
We can't think of any other club worldwide that have men as members, but some of us have very supportive husbands
Indeed.
who, do everything possible to make sure that what we're doing,
Yes.
we get it done. And for that, we're also very grateful.
Indeed.
Yes. And, but as for men being members, not just yet, but it would be my wish as a founding member of this club to have some men
Absolutely.
as members of our club.
Indeed.
I would have nothing against that. And they can walk with us. We can't put a scarf on them, but we can put a pin on them,
Yes. Yes.
or
Indeed.
even do a cap that says BPW.
Quite right.
And maybe that should be our next lobbying project.
Well, I would certainly buy a cap in that sense, and certainly to the men out there, this is an organization for women, by women. It's their opportunity to shine, and it is our obligation as men, to be there in the background supporting them as best we can, and that should be enough. And I think a lot of men would jump at that opportunity.
And men do walk with us when we do the Silent Witness March.
Yes.
They
Yes.
do walk with
We
us.
do get
Indeed.
a lot of support.
Yes. And they do give us support.
Sure. Sure.
And in addition to what Ms. Annie said, BPW also holds a seat in the United Nations under the international remit that we fall under.
Okay.
So
Yes.
I would encourage more. We're doing a membership drive, and BPW comes in two sets, two different sections. We have the 35 and under, 18 to 35.
Yes.
And we're falling short with membership on that side, so we're trying to encourage more young people
Perfect.
to get involved
Yes.
so that they can, help to build and, learn more from Miss Annie, like myself. That's
Sure.
what I'm doing, trying to get some of her knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And we also have mentorship programs that we're affiliated with, back to school campaigns. Miss Annie mentioned the Gulf Scramble. We involved in the Junior Achievement. We have health and wellness programs, the Women's Outreach Prison Program. We weren't able to do anything due to the pandemic, but that's on our agenda to revisit again. So there are lots of things that we have about 18 different committees within BPW.
Yes.
Social committees, community outreach committees that we can get involved in.
Wow.
So we encourage. We're on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Ms. Anna mentioned the website, but the website is pretty much under construction right now.
Okay.
So we're looking to do a little boost on that
Excellent.
pretty soon.
Okay.
So
Indeed.
stay
Well, when you
tuned.
have all that information, we'll be
We'll
happy to promote it for you, as well as
Oh, thank you,
any
Austin.
future initiatives. Let me extend the assistance of this program
Thank
to
you.
the Business and Professional Women's Club. We truly value the work that your organization does in the local community, and if there's anything we as men can do in the background to assist you,
Well, you're doing it now.
it's our
And
pleasure.
we thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank
It is
you.
indeed.
You're getting
Thank you.
you're getting it out there.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, so
Yes.
that the wider community can see and hear. Yeah, and we will gladly accept the help and assistance
I look forward to it.
for all who call us.
Indeed. Miss Annie, Miss Cheryl, I want to thank you on behalf of our listeners, on behalf of our producers and directors, for the important and meaningful work the Business and Professional Women's Club have been doing in the Cayman community since the mid-'70s. And certainly encourage you to continue that well into the future. I know you will, certainly that is your ambition. And certainly to the audience members, if you have been inspired by the work of this organization and you're a young woman between 18 and 35, wanting to do something meaningful in your life as well as for your community, the Business and Professional Women's Club may be for you. Ladies, thank you so very much for
Thank
being
you,
our guests
Austin.
on this episode. And to our audiences, we again say thank you for taking the time to tune in. We hope you have enjoyed today's episode as much as we have. If you did, remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And please feel free to leave any comments you may have on either the Progressives YouTube channel or Facebook page. Please tune in every Sunday at 2 p.m. for another episode of Let's Talk, exploring the issues affecting all of our lives. I'm your host, Austin Harris. Until next time.